Hello right bags, it's Jade. Welcome to another Nightingale info video. Brand new interviews with the lead creative director of Inflection Games, Aaron Flynn, talking about Nightingale, as well as a written article with gamesradar and a bunch of the developers giving their input about the world of Nightingale. I'm super excited about this game. If you can't tell already, this is the third info video we've done since we got the trailer drop at the Game Awards in 2021. And although it's only been about a month, we're starting to see even more news, and so lots of interviews have come out in the last couple of days. I'm going to go over it all. There's a written one, and then there's one that you can actually watch and listen to from Game Reactor. I'll leave both the links in the comment section down below. But I'm going to give you the recap of exactly what the devs have said here, and then just a few thoughts and opinions from me as we go along with it as well. But yeah, Nightingale is fast approaching my most hyped game of 2022, and that's a big ask. We've got Sons of the Forest this year, we've got possibly Ark 2, we've got games like Smallland, which I'm interested in, as well as a whole bunch of others as well. So this is really now nearly at the top of the pile that I'm interested in. So let's go and dive into these brand new interviews with brand new information and lots of fleshed out stuff. One way to share a compelling world with players is to give them the opportunity to share it with others, and I really believe in that as a powerful mechanism for a gameplay. The vision for our studio is creating fantastical spaces in meaningful places. A lot of us draw meaning from a place, physical or virtual, because of the common experiences we have with those that are in it with us. In that notion of meaningful places is the fundamental recognition that places are at their best when they're shared with others, and that's why we want to explore with Nightingale. So we know that Nightingale was set hundreds of years after the Fae, magical beings, made contact with humanity. Nightingale was the city that grew around the magic epicenter, and pretty much humans been building portals to other realms, other places, using this magic. In trailer we know that this portal collapses and then you're left there defending for yourself in some unknown realm. Magic is still seen as a very mysterious thing. It's not part of everyday life. People aren't making breakfast with magic as you might see in Harry Potter. It's a powerful force that few hold. Flynn apparently says that there will be potential to commit to the study of magic, but first you need to figure out how to survive the realms. Alone or with other realm walkers. Effectively, the aim of the game is to get back to the Nightingale city using the broken portal network. Between you and that is a whole labyrinth of Fae realms with different landscapes and biomes. From the moment you establish your estate, your first step arriving in the game, we want players to have a lot of freedom over the types of experiences they have and how they choose to progress, says Leah Summers, Director of Production. We want players to have a lot of freedom when it comes to how they express themselves across Nightingale's realms. There will be a progression to some degree in terms of tools, items and areas you'll be able to access, but the rhythm of that is something that we're very conscious of. We want players to feel capable at all times while growing and evolving. Survival crafting has been a really wonderful genre that's been incubating within these smaller, very talented teams, Finn says, noting that the 100+ developers at Inflection have paid close attention to the pioneering work that has been completed in this space since Nightingale entered production in 2018. I think there's still a ton of evolution to be had in the survival crafting genre, and we believe that the world building is a big part of that. They go on to say that the investment in getting developers that know about big worlds and how that can really help them with the survival genre is going to lead to an interesting, challenging world, which you'll be able to explore, harvest and eventually conquer on your own, or preferably with friends. One of the things that started with me from my time at BioWare was seeing these incredible worlds come to life that resonate so deeply with players, and how the experience of playing a BioWare game can bring together players through the sense of a shared universe. Ultimately, combining that shared experience with a rich game world to create places that players can get lost in drives our approach to developer Nightingale. I didn't want to go too heavy on the details of exactly how the story is going to unfold, but effectively the experience of developing narratively led games also influenced our desire not to introduce a linear narrative in Nightingale. Giving players a premise and a world to inhabit allows for the creation of stories driven by a player's or group of players' experiences within the world of Nightingale on a session by session basis that are far more powerful and personal than anything we developers could create. So we know it's set in an alternative Victorian world against Gaslamp. It's astonishingly rich from a visual perspective and has allowed us to borrow all kinds of inspirational sources which span both fictional and historical. As an example, here's how this decision impacts creature design. Our more fantastical creatures are inspired by the folklore of the past. We wanted to ensure that our fantastical creatures don't feel sci-fi in appearance, so many have magical aspects or elements to their design that enhance the otherworldliness of the realms they inhabit. Developers haven't said or don't want to say whether or not it's going to be procedurally generated just yet, but it does confirm we've seen just 3 of the biomes, forest, swamp and desert so far, with still more variety to come from this beautifully twisted network of explorable spaces. The Fey realms are places of incredible magic, and so you would expect a lot of differentiation as a player as you move between them, discovering, learning and taking on challenges. Thompson says the richness and depth of these spaces go beyond visual variation, with each environment type impacting the way we play and the sorts of ambient life we'll encounter. The freedom to explore new and interesting places is key to Nightingale. There are many different biome types, each allow for different environmental challenges as well as bespoke wildlife and creatures, and providing the space and resources necessary for base and structure building to aid in their adventures. Flynn says he's keen to express that you'll have autonomy over where you go, and that the team is focused on providing good motivations to leave your creative estates behind to go out exploring. If you're in a realm that you really like, there's no reason you have to leave it, except that you can't get certain resources unless you go into them. We're trying to pull you into other realms, not push you into them. As for the city itself, Thompson confirmed that Reach Nightingale was just one part of the adventure rather than the end of it, as the possibly last human city has a more familiar look based on the architecture of the time, and you expect there to be some interesting NPCs to interact with there. So I'm guessing that might be somewhere where we might be able to unlock better weapons, new upgrades and stuff like that. We have a main objective, which is to find a way back to the city of Nightingale, but there'll also be other things for players to do and explore, including quests that you can receive from NPCs. You'll be able to help lost citizens that you encounter across different realms. That's as well as players being able to express themselves, building settlements and allowing them to craft better tools and equipment to aid in their exploration. It's also important that players are able to accumulate the skills and tools to be able to use the world to express themselves in a way beyond just the main narrative or quests. As a studio, we like to use the phrase endless adventures when describing Nightingale. So we want to make sure that whatever type of player you are, there are ways to interact, explore, discover and grow the world around you in perfect ways that feel meaningful. This can manifest in several ways throughout Nightingale. You'll acquire equipment, new skills, fortifications, gradually unlocking ports to new realms over time. But Inflection is keen to establish interaction beyond the cycle of exploring, looting and surviving against the enemies and enemies you'll encounter along the way. If you watch the reveal closer, you may even spot a teaser of one of these meaningful interactions, and that's where obviously we talk to the giant and become friendly with him, or then it shows the difference that actually if you don't do that, you can just go ahead and have the giant as a problem to deal with in a more physical way. We want to convey a sense of optionality that allows players to find alternative ways of interacting and benefiting from the creatures they encounter, he continues. They use this encounter to show dichotomy of choices that realm walkers get to make, and there'll be potentially different rewards and outcomes for that. Player expression is one of the cornerstones of Nightingale. Although Inflection isn't quite ready to detail the systems at the heart of its upcoming survival experience, nor is it ready to confirm how large team sizes will be in this player versus environment focused experience. We want our players to be the realm walkers that they want to be in this world. That means there are player character choices and customization. You'll need to collect resources to create the gear, tools and weapons you need to survive and progress, sure, but you'll also be able to make more granular changes to the composition of your outfits, their colour configurations, all which is born out of the crafting side of the game. You want a different colour coat? Then go craft a different colour coat or get your friend to craft it for you, whatever works. Inflection's also promising that Nightingale will feature a robust construction system, allowing you to build everything from small farms and estates to larger scale villages and fortifications, everything you need to get a little community of players to live off the land. Again, the reveal trailer indicates that construction will be pretty modular, letting groups build intricate encampments, which they'll need should you want to survive sieges from the Bound and other large scale creatures. Now that word Bound is something new to me. I don't think I've seen anything else referencing it really. We know that the Fae are there and they're part of the magical creatures that have left their imprint. But yeah, that's potentially, I guess, what them sort of zombie style creatures were. Flynn goes on to say, if there's a reason to invest in a major space, kind of like the village setup that you saw emerge in a time lapse, then by all means do that. If you'd rather explore, discover mysteries or take on more challenges, which are ever present, they are always there. Then you can go and do that too. You get a choice as a player. Now it does look like the first person combat is going to be a thing as well. The weapons are rooted in a recognisable reality, a creative decision you'll see reflected throughout the guns, blades and tools in the game. There'll be also sorcery to contend with should you discover and master it. That may pique the interest of a lot of Conan Exiles fans that have been crying out for sorcery to be added after it was promised long ago and never delivered. We want there to be an optionality in terms of how you approach combat, balancing multiple combinations of techniques, experimenting with different loadouts, playing with others to take on challenges. We also want to make sure that we have a good balance between combat and non-combat solutions. Pointing out the encounter with the giant, Summers adds it's exciting to think about diversity and strategies that players might take when approaching the combat in the game. As for the types of enemies in the game, Flynn says the team is always thinking about how it can make the world seem all more surprising and threatening, a decision which has ultimately led to Gothic inspired enemy designs that are 1 part European folklore and 2 parts eldritch monstrosity. You do get to see a lot of the bounding trait are created by the Fae in Mimicry of Humanity. They feature a range of different skills, magic abilities and weaponry, and they're only really shown a small taste of what they're capable of in our reveal, Thompson says. There'll be other large scale creatures that players will encounter, including at the top of the food chain are apex monsters. And this is what really draw me the comparison of like Monster World or Monster Hunter World, etc. Ishmael makes an appearance in the trailer at the beginning and the end, and though whether you're a player wise enough to attack such a formidable creature, we leave you to decide. So that is a huge amount of info. Great interview actually, I would say. Sometimes I'll click on these and you only get like 3 bits of new information, but that was really in depth, so big shout out to Josh West there at GamesRadar. So on top of that lengthy text interview with GamesRadar, which was pretty good, so go and check it out. I'll leave it in the comment section if you want to read it all yourself or digest it. We also got an actual proper interview on screen from Game Reactor, and they had a bunch of stuff where they went over a lot of the stuff that was revealed and kind of going over a lot of the lore and story that we kind of already know about if you've seen my last 2 videos on Nightingale. But there was a little bit more nuance and a little bit more explaining some of these details, including the base building aspect. Is it going to be just one hub center, or is it going to be able to be built anywhere? And I'm still a little bit confused, but I'll get you guys to judge it.
And let's talk about the limits to what you can create as well, because is there a limit in place, or is that sort of up to the players? I ask because in the trailer we got to see a glimpse of Nightingale itself, that big broad city. Like, is that something that the players can potentially work up to and build themselves, or is that more of like a hub location that will be introduced at some point down the line?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think of it more like a hub. So think of it more like a really, magical and mysterious place that's going to have lots of opportunities for storytelling and things like that. But that said, the building system that we're working on and investing in is getting very robust. And so I think players will have a lot of opportunity to build communities themselves that are pretty impressive and should offer lots of functionality, lots of decorative gameplay and things like that. So really ensuring that players are creative and feeling empowered is so important to us in this game.
So yeah, that sounds to me like you will be able to mostly build anywhere, although I still am a little bit unconfused whether or not you'll have maybe some sort of hub area where you can only build a big, large base, and maybe only smaller realms or other realms where you only be able to build little campsites and stuff. We'll have to clear that up hopefully next chance we get. The interview is about 22 minutes long, and as I said, it does go over a lot of the stuff that I've spoken about already, so don't really want to rehash it all, but it is a great listen, so absolutely, again, I'll leave that in the comment section down below, and just go and give them a like and a follow as well. Ultimately, what we're learning more and more about Nightingale is devs really want you to be able to play it the way you want to play it. I had reservations about Icarus recently because I just don't particularly like the fact that you can't keep your bases. Like, there's no way to keep a blueprint record of them and set them up next time, and although you unlock perks and skills to make gathering and getting resources quicker on your next drop, the session based gameplay of that really hinders my enjoyment of that title. And I think for so many of you survival fans, after covering this genre for 5 years now, 6 years nearly, I gotta say it's definitely one of these things that it comes back again and again. You want a base to come back to, you want somewhere to customize, you want to be able to build your own place, and that's super important for PvE. It's got to be right, it's got to be a good building system, and it's got to be something you can be creative with and add your own flair to. If it's a case of just shitty homes like in New World where you only just go in and have to spend gold to get a new desk put in or bookcase put in, it's just not the one. People being able to build like you can in Ark or Rust or Valheim, etc., then these are the games that often are selling and doing much better than other survival games without it. And clearly the devs want to get across that yes, you can play it your way, but there is always going to be that connection with others. You will always be maybe wanting to promote and help out other players or possibly go tackle other realms together, and that's going to be a big component of it as well. But yeah, they're still happy enough with solo play. The ability to go and loot and get different resources in different biomes, pushing you out your comfort zone eventually, or sticking just as a homebot on yours. Again, it's all about choice, it's about how you want to play the game, and with the armors and the weapons that you're hopefully going to be crafting or imbuing with your own style, then that's looking pretty good as well. Now for a little dose of reality, the negatives that could potentially rise. This realms basis where you're traveling to different realms. Are they going to be up all the time? Is it a case of having a limit on how many realms or how many of these servers players can actually have? Are we going to be trying to get into like a dark realm filled with this forest area, but we can't actually get onto it because there's a queue and there's like 3,000 people trying to get onto 10 of them particular types of realms? Is it going to be more session based? Will it be just a case of springing up a session based event, so you generally don't run out of servers, but it's tied to one of you, a bit like Fallout 76? That would probably be the worst case scenario for me. I prefer queues than relying on someone else's state. It doesn't sound like that's the case from everything I've read. We're just chucking it out there that are still not 100% clear, and we'll get that information in the future, I'm sure. And I guess the last note is that he gets asked about PvP, and although he says PvP is not in the plans, he does say at the moment they are not 100% ruling it out in the future, but it's not the focus of development right now by the sounds of it, or in early or when they launch. And it seems like if there's an opportunity to add something fun and it kind of matches up, then it might be something they look into in the future. And I like that idea, not discounting everything. You know, I think it could work out well. Imagine if you did get onto a realm and it was like a battle royale realm where basically the last team standing gets the last loot, or it's a competition to kill as many monsters as you can. There's lots of different ways to set PvP. It doesn't have to be simply just going and base raiding each other. So yes, if they can find a good way for that, that could really entice a whole new wave of players that might not be interested in the game because it is strictly PvE at the moment. Anyhow, lots and lots of variables. Go and check out the interviews. I'll be back with any more relevant info to give you the brief recap of it all anytime anything drops. And until next time, Ratbags, I'll see you later.